Hello, can you hear
Hi
me?
Patrick, how are you?
Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me as well, Laura? Just waiting to see if she can hear me. Anyway, good morning. Nice to see you. Good morning or
Nice
good
to see
evening,
you.
depending on where you are.
Yeah. Good evening. Or even night.
I can see Laura now.
Hi, sorry, I hadn't clicked on agree to something, so it wouldn't let me either unmute or show my video.
Okay, that's fine. So first of all, I just want to check you both can log into your Photoshop. So have you
Yeah,
managed to open up Photoshop?
yeah,
Okay, and what we're going to do is sort of go from scratch through Photoshop from the beginning. So if you have any bit of knowledge, I'm going to go through my system
yeah,
and see
yeah.
if you're going to align with it purely just because people think they might know what they're doing and they're not. So I'm going to just share my screen with you. Let me just go here. You should be able to see my page. And I'm just gonna, so if you open up Photoshop, don't worry what I have here. I've just got an image up there already.
Yeah.
Forget about that. And so Photoshop comes up, opens up, and it might open up with a different window. I'm just trying to, so if you go to the top, you'll have File New. There's Photoshop, if Photoshop's loaded.
Yeah.
So we do File New, or you'll see Command N if you're working on a Mac. And then you should have this page. Can everybody see? Can you see this page as well, Laura?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So I guess Photoshop has made it a bit easier, but it's looking at my recents and it's got my saved photo, print, illustration, web. So on here, I always work depending on what level of Photoshop you've got, because I know everyone's working on different ones. You should have a similar screen to this. Um, I always work for print. So whenever you're going to do an illustration or a drawing or a painting or use any sort of Photoshop digital skills, the biggest problem we have still is people creating images low resolution. And that is purely because they don't know what they're doing. They're bringing an image in, maybe that they've drawn on their laptop or they've drawn on a sketchbook. They've photographed it on their phone and then they've tried to bring it into Photoshop. And when you bring an image in from your phone, and I'm going to show you a bit of this today, is when you bring an image by a phone, it's working at 72 dpi. Sometimes it's working at 96, but it's working at web resolution, which is screen resolution. So it can stay quite low res. So you have to be quite cautious about how you're bringing images coming across. But we're going to play about with this today so you can see how I do it. So I make sure that things are the right resolution. Yeah, that is the most important part of anything that you do is resolution. Um, I guess the next important part is if you look on here. So I'm going to go across and I'll never select web, even if I'm doing an illustration that's going to be on a website. I'll always make it for print. Purely, it might make my machine go a little bit slower, but it means that at the end of a project, it means if you want to print it and use it, you've at least got it high resolution. So I'm going to go to print. Let's see on here. So obviously it's got American formats. So it's got letter, legal, tabloid. These don't really align with us. I'm going to go for A4, which is a standard A4 size in the UK. So can you see this one, Laura?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll select A4. And then on here, we have the dimensions, which is 210 by 297, which is paper format. So we're working also orientation is portrait. So we have portrait or landscape, depending on how you're going to be working. If you're doing a drawing for an editorial, or if it's going to go on a postcard or something like that. We're going to work with A4 portrait for the moment, purely because if we think of a mobile phone is working portrait mainly, and most people are looking in portrait mode. So we're working portrait. We could discuss dimensions that are for Instagram and social media, but that's later. You really need to focus on this main part. So the next bit is resolution. So you should see here 300, it could be DPI or PPI, pixels per inch, or dots per inch. And here you have the color mode. So the color mode is working at RGB. RGB is web based. So red, green, blue. So on here, I have my color mode, and you can work in RGB and you can switch it after. If you use CMYK, so if you see, if I click on here, I have CMYK. That's the 4-color process. So it will only work in cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So here I could start in this, but a lot of the buttons on Photoshop will stop and won't give you the option. So I tend to work in RGB mode. So I work in RGB. The only problem is the gamut of color is much bigger in RGB than CMYK. So I tend to work in RGB, and then I convert at the end. Yeah, does that make sense? And I'll show you how to do that. So it isn't a big issue. It's just the colors go a little bit more dull when you change from RGB to CMYK. So if you have a really bright red or a yellow or certain colors, they'll dim down a little bit when you convert from RGB to CMYK. That's if you're going to print. Yeah, so it's just something to think about. So we're going to stick with RGB mode. So we have our RGB mode here. And then I'm just checking everything else. White background is fine. You can have transparent. I just like white paper, keep it white. Profiling, leave it on RGB. These are, I guess they're profiling more for photographers. A lot of illustrators mess about with this. I've gone through all of these, like Apple RGB, all of them. If you're going into a print in a magazine, they'll have their own IC profiles anyway. So they'll change your color modes anyway. So I just leave it as RGB, and pixel ratio square. You wouldn't even know the difference, even if I told you to play with it. So you could experiment with these, but the RGB color mode, a lot of people have sent me stuff for our books, and it makes no difference because we overwrite their color mode. So a photographer, if he was doing a book, there'll be a lot of color modes set up, but for illustrators, it's less so. So let's press create. So here we have our A4 page. So we have, are you working on a Mac? Are you both on Macs or PC?
PC.
PC, right. So I've just got to remember all of the shortcuts. If I talk in a shortcut, I'm going to have to think of like what you're pressing Control plus,
Yeah.
rather than Apple plus. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we have our A4 page, and then here on my screen, are you similar look and feel to here? Because sometimes you might not see some of the windows that I'm seeing. Can you see similar windows to me?
Yeah, I see the same as
Yeah.
yours.
Perfect. That's good news. So on the left-hand side are our tools. If you press this little arrow, you can shorten the tools. It's your choice how you want to have them. I'm working on a 17-inch Mac, so my screen's not too bad scale-wise. It's okay. And I guess most of us are working on 17-inch monitors, 15-inch monitors. But you know, size-wise, this doesn't make much difference. On the right-hand side, you have the layers. So here are my layers. Here are my channels. The ones I tend to use, I use all three, layers, channels, paths, and we will go through them. But as you see, look, they're showing you nice little videos now in Photoshop, so you can click on them and watch the videos. But we're kind of trying to think about how an illustrator or an artist might work. So I have my page here. Now, I don't know if you have a drawing by you or a sketch. I have drawings for you to use if you don't have any.
Okay.
But I'm just gonna switch from this screen to my other screen. So I'm just gonna stop sharing for the moment. Let's stop share. I'm just gonna share another screen. I'm just gonna go to this. So I'm just going to kind of go through a few little options of the ways that I work and give you sort of an overview of how I work before I go into Photoshop and use tools and how you might work as an illustrator. So I guess a good quick question for both of you, as if we don't, I know, Deborah, how you work as well. But Laura, so your process, how do you usually work as a creative?
I've been doing it mostly analog, and then but recently I started to do more in digital. So I've been using Illustrator and Procreate, but I want to combine the two.
Okay, and how has your outputs been for Procreate? Have you just outputted it to digital, or are you printing from Procreate as well?
No, I haven't been printing. Yeah,
Right, okay. That's the best test, is get some of your images that you've made in Procreate,
yeah,
print them out and see, are you happy with the quality, the resolution, all
yeah,
of them little things, because that's when the little bits of trouble start to appear, is they look great on the phone or on a computer. It's
yeah,
the analog, because if you're an analog maker or a
yeah,
creative, you like tactility and you're thinking, right, how do I get this lovely illustration or drawing that I've done out of this and into that? And also you mentioned Illustrator, which is great for vector
yeah,
illustration, so quite flat or blocky,
yeah,
I'm guessing. So from that perspective, that would be fine to print. I don't think you'll have any, and I guess you're using that or more on your machine, because some people are using Illustrator on the app on their iPads. Are you using it on your computer rather
I'm
than?
using it on my computer.
Right,
Yeah,
okay. That's better. The app isn't that great. Still, after all these years, they haven't. It's too strong to run on the machine, so they can't really run it correctly on an iPad. But I guess they'll get there soon. And I guess for you, Deborah,
Yep.
your process is sort of a combination, isn't it?
Yeah, I work analog first and then I scan everything and then I play with layers, opacity, and blending modes.
Right. Okay.
So that's mostly how I work. I've tried to work on Procreate and Fresco, but I'm still not comfortable with it yet.
Right.
no,
Okay.
I'm not completely comfortable, but it is nice playing around and getting ideas and doing things. But
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
usually like do 5 minutes and then I'm like, can't draw on this. I need to go back on paper and I just start again on paper.
over the last
So
couple of weeks, I've been forcing myself to get really used to it, because I know that it will be really useful once you're very comfortable with all the tools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess depending on the outcomes that you want in Procreate, you have to go through a similar journey as the
Yeah.
way that you work as an analog creative. So try the pencils, then you go
Yeah,
from pencils to brushes,
yeah,
and there's a real, I guess there's a sort of a playful element. But the new stuff I'm seeing on what Procreate are doing with the layering and Fresco. If you use Fresco, I saw really nice things on Fresco where they do the bleeding of the watercolor, which
yeah,
is
Yes,
which is
yes.
so nice.
yeah,
That's really good. Yeah, even for oil painting, if you want to
Yeah,
add some texture, it works really well.
yeah.
it's magical, is all I can say
Yes.
when I saw it. So I guess from my point of view is, so my background, I guess, is a combination of drawing, using Photoshop. I didn't used to use Photoshop. Everything was made by hand. Most of my illustrations. So the image that I'm showing you here, this was a drawing I did for Christian Dior. For I did a series of scarves for Christian Dior, and this was one of the scarf illustrations that they used.
I can't see a scarf.
No, no. So you can just see the drawing that I
All
did
right,
for the scarf. If you go, I can send you a picture of the final outcome so you can see it. But you
we
can
can just
think,
see a model.
Yeah, so you can see the mannequin, the black and
Mannequin,
white
yeah.
drawing.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm explaining what this illustration was used in the end.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Um,
Yeah.
so I was to do a series of drawings that represented the couture and the handcrafting of the House of Dior. So I was quite lucky that I went behind the scenes and looked at the mannequins, the dummies, the scissors, all the equipment that they used to make a piece at Dior. And then the final outcome was a series of scarves that we ended up making. But this is really about, I guess, that is a later stage that we can do, but it's the process that I did. And I brought, I think I've got the drawing here. I brought in a lot of bits so you can kind of see in real time as well. So I work, if you can see the size. So this is another, this was another drawing. This was
Nice.
a Raf Simons drawing, and I did this in pen and ink. And you can see
Oh.
I'm working at A2 size, so it's quite big in scale if you look at the size of me.
Yeah.
So I worked quite big, really, because the scarf was about, it was going to be made up to 1 meter 20 by 1 meter 20. So it was going to go quite big. So I had to think that the detail, I didn't want it to break up too much. So I illustrated it quite largely so that I knew that if I drew it A4, the lines would become more gnarly, gritty, and sort of fat. And I wanted to keep that detail. So if you imagine all the drawings, I think I have another one of this one as well. Somewhere. I've got a few, here's, I think that's it as well, yeah. So you can see,
Oh, wow.
these were sort of drawings, watercolors, and I did a good series. I must have done, here's another one.
Right.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And these are sort of analog drawings that I made, and I made hundreds of them. Yeah, so we went through hundreds of drawings and hundreds of mannequins. And then you have this other side of it is color management. So the reason why I use Photoshop is really for color management. I do a lot of playing in Photoshop, but I'm going to show you some like little ideas of how to think of how to use Photoshop in different ways. So my other background is I do a lot of printmaking. So I'm always thinking about screen printing. How do I get this sort of process of the printmaking look and feel? So it's really textured in a digital file. So a lot of people want this feeling of something that's quite handcrafted, moving into digital, but still feels handmade. And I think that's and there's going to be a real demand for it because of AI. So the beauty of AI is that it's going to become very digital, and it's going to have a look and feel of digital, but I guess the craftspeople, the people that work by hand, they're going to be desirable because they work purely by hand. So those who are adopting Procreate and drawing everything on the computer, that will all be mimicked and made via AI. So I guess the beauty is if you're a person who works by hand, your hand touch will always be the thing that will be demanded the most. So it's kind of a nice thing to have a hybrid of both. But I guess that's sort of my process. So I guess here's another drawing I did for Fendi. It was just a drawing that I made as an observational drawing. This was featured in some another magazine, Dazed and Confused, about behind the scenes of a fashion show. So I was looking at the feet and the shoes of models and people that came to shows. And I guess the reason I'm showing you these is really my core ways of working is about drawing and mark making and image making. That builds you up all the ingredients that you need to then bring into Photoshop, because Photoshop is the place for you to place and layer all of your rich content. Yeah, so when we have more experiences and more you showcasing more of your work, it's really about you doing your drawings, making your images, and then bringing them into Photoshop. And Photoshop is like, if you're a printmaker works in layers. and like rotoscoping or as an animator, is layers. So I use Photoshop just as a way of laying down my colors, like as if I was drawing. Yeah. So here's just one example. So here's another example of drawing. So here's an observation using watercolors, which then I could bring in this into Photoshop, and I can show you like how you could change. An art director might say, well, look, we don't like orange at the moment. It's not very in trend. It's too harsh. Could this become a green? Now, if I have to repaint this, that would be hell, because I'd lose the magic of the moment. And you're kind of then retracing it. So a lot of creatives purely use Photoshop for just recoloring their artworks, because they've made the craft. The craft's there. The beauty is in the drawing. And then from there, you can go and make your color changes or whatever. So this is just another form of sort of drawing that we're going to bring into Photoshop. And then here's another version of something quite activist. So I'm thinking, this was an illustration from a queen, and I had you can see it's totally a different approach, and it had to have that feeling of punk, avant-garde, against the grain. So the way it was drawn was a very sort of angry mark making, image making, and this went purely through Photoshop. So I did this I drew the drawing by hand in a sketchbook, and then I brought it into Photoshop, and I had lots of bits of rubbish and things that I collected with it, and then it makes up this sort of mark making. And it's a different approach to that, so very different from this more classical drawing to then watercolor to then this very sort of young punky way of drawing. So I guess the other part is, if you see, it's playful and printmaking like. So it has a very different approach. And I guess the way as a creative is when people see your work or want to commission your work, or because remember, I'm working as a commercial artist, so I need to make money. So my way of making money is I have an array of styles. I don't have one style. So some illustrators stick to one style, like David Downton or people like that. But others, like for me, I got bored, and I'd be like, I can't repeat the same approach to image making every time. So I sort of have a very playful, experimental way of working. And if any one of you see my Instagram or whatever, you have a look. It's always behind the scenes. I'm not using it so much commercially. It's more about me learning and playing and experimenting. So here you just saw in Photoshop another image. So here's this image. So I have a series of these drawings that I've made, and this was using Indian ink paint as a backdrop. And what I tend to do is I photograph the processes to see which bits I don't like and do like. And I never worry about color. So if you look at this and you say, I hate the color here, color never worries me, because I can change color in Photoshop. So I never think, I don't like this image because of the color, because a lot of people get offended by color. So I might say some of these colors are quite strong. I look at this in hues, like a cat. So I'm seeing the red as a really strong hue, and this is quite a light hue. And it was really me bringing a bit of expressionism into mark making. So I did a series of these, and I'd probably do in a day, I might do 50 in a day. Yeah,
Wow.
so I'll do, so this will be a huge series, and there was the other drawing. But I'll draw probably 50, even more in a day. I'll draw them, and then I'll have them out in my studio, and then it will be a tack process. And there will be points where you'll get fatigue and you'll do them bad and they're in the bin. But it's a really sort of experimental process. And I'm not thinking to myself, I'm not worried about any constraints of color, problems like that, making it look beautiful. All of them things have to be pushed to the side. It's purely about being creative and experimenting. So I guess the beauty of this sort of experience that we're going to have is really to think about how you can move your ways of working and experiment and use digital tools to make your work more professional. There's really basic things, because even on the awards, when we have our awards, lots of people send in good work, but it's so badly photographed. It's really unprofessional. The finishes, and that's the feedback we receive from judges, that the work isn't finished like a professional artist or creative. So it's just sort of you to think about the work in progress. And I've got lots of sketchbooks here. I've brought sketchbooks just to, and this is like me sketchbooking and mark making, and I have hundreds of these. So then I do pencil drawings with watercolor, and I probably go through 30 to 40 sketchbooks a year.
Wow.
So a lot of sketching, a lot of drawing, a lot of analyzing before, and mark making. So just sort of a basis before we get into Photoshop is really for you to think. I don't know if I put any more. No. So I've kind of gone from a very classical drawing, which could be, you might find yourself in here, and then you might have something more watercolory or more pencil, and then something much more expressive, much more dynamic, much more aggressive. So there's sort of a play, and then there's something more sort of painterly. And we're seeing artists going, if you follow illustrators, you've got Jessica Bird and you've got all these different characters who we feature, who have this sort of more painterly approach. And fashion's in trends, so it moves around a lot. So fashion obviously moves, and you'll have someone doing watercolors one season, and then they move to something more painterly with abstract mark making. So you should never follow trends in fashion. That is the best tip, because I see a lot of the illustrators emulating other illustrators, and then they show me the work, and then I'm like, that has a feeling of this person. That person's done it. Once it's done and it's shown in the fashion world, it's dead. It means that that person is finished, unfortunately, because they've used them and they can't really recycle them. So you won't, if an artist comes up and makes a moment in time, it tends to be they'll use for that season, and then it's on to the next person. So it's quite hard as a fashion illustrator. You might have a great moment, but then unfortunately you have to work out how to survive after that, because that moment kind of goes. So it's part of fashion. So you can't hold fashion ransom. Fashion always moves forward. So I wanted to show you these from a sort of a mark making point of view. And then we can kind of go through. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop. Let me just open up Photoshop.
Patrick, when you said you did like 50 and then attack them, so did you sketch them out and then go?
I just draw direct straight onto the paper with paint.
Okay. Oh, with paint. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll do Indian ink drawings first.
Yeah.
Let them all dry, otherwise there'll be mess. So
Yeah.
that gives me enough time to have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Indian ink I love, because it has that sort of it has a raised effect, like a sort of heavy
It's a
print,
shellac
like
on it.
tar. It's like tar. And
Yeah.
then that will take, probably depending on the temperature outside, it might take an hour to dry.
Yeah.
And then I'll attack them with the colors, and I'll have loads of paint everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll do all of them all in one go, in
Yeah.
a big shift. And I'll create lots of little rules for me. Right, I'm going to use this approach. I'm going to paint my left hand, right hand, almost like a foundation course experience of creativity. And within a day, you're super productive. And then the next day, you're terrible. So you can have a day where you're really good, and you won't
have the next day clearing up. Yeah.
Yes, next day clearing up and photographing it and scanning it and bringing it to the next area. So I guess from that point of view, you're always playing and being creative. So let me just get Photoshop back up. Okay, so I don't know if you have a drawing. I think I probably might be able to share one in the chat. Unless you have a drawing of your own. Do you have a sketch? If you don't, it's not a problem. I can send you a sketch. I have my sketches everywhere. So I'm going to give you a black and white. So here's a good example. Let me see if I can put it in the chat for you. Right, I'm just going to take a screenshot of that. Well, no, I'm going to go through the journey. I'm going to stop sharing because I want to show you my whole screen. Desktop, share. You can see here. So I'm just going to reduce this down. And I'm going to kind of go through this process. So today, just as an example, I took a photograph with my phone. Yeah. Now I do have an A3 scanner, but not everybody has an A3 scanner. That's a luxury. But if you don't have an A3 scanner, your phone is pretty good now for taking a photograph of your work. It will probably photograph it up to, I would say A3 is the size, but we can check now. So I'm just going to show you. So I photographed an image and I'm going to look at my desktop and I've got this image. And if you can see on my desktop, it's got .heic. Can you see the extension?
Yeah.
That is a horrible file. It doesn't work anywhere apart from it. You can drag it. I can drag it into Photoshop, but it's a really difficult file to work with. But we get sent them, and I have to spend time converting them and stuff like that. So they're a really horrible file to work with. And for some reason, Apple is going down this route. I think because they want the raw data. If you took a photograph, because it wants to go with lots of information, it holds all the like a raw file. If you were a photographer, you would have a raw file. So I'm going to drag my image. So there's two things. I'm going to show you two things. One is you can drag it straight onto the desktop. Yeah. So did you see? I just dragged it into my page and I press OK. So I'm just showing you. You don't need to copy me. I'm just going to show you. So you could either drag it in, or I'm going to bring it into Photoshop by dragging it onto Photoshop here. Yeah, so I'm just dragging it into here. And if you're working on a PC, yeah, Laura, I would go File, Open, and then look for that
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to look for it. So you might have an image on your desktop, and I press Open. So now that's sort of three ways of dragging it into the icon, dragging it straight onto the desktop, and opening it onto the page. Yeah. Now, what I would do is where you've dragged it onto the desktop, that's the last option. It's the quickest, but it's the worst. Yeah. So the best option is to go to File, Open, and then find it. So we go File, Open, and then I open it. And then I can see the file is here. So it's telling me this is my file. Right. For some reason, I feel that that's not the file because it hasn't got the HIC extension. Maybe let me just check. No, let me see what one that is. So I really want to see the one with the HEIC menu.
So the HEIC is that straight from the phone, is it?
Straight from the phone. Yeah, so I'm just going to go back to where it was. So here it is. So here's the image here. And it's come with HEIC at, it's showing you the percentage of what I'm looking at. So I can zoom in, zoom out. And then its color mode is RGB. So what I do, first of all, is I'm going to go to image. And then I go to image size. And I look on here. This is what I was talking to you about earlier, is I check the image size. So here it's telling me, look how big the image is. It's a meter by 1.5 meters. So that's a big image. Yeah. So we probably didn't realize that photograph I just took on my iPhone is going at 1 meter 42 by 106. Yeah. But the resolution is 72 dpi. So that means it's a web print. It's a web version. So what I do to save conversions and problems and stuff like that is I select all. So Command A or select all. Yeah. So you can look for the shortcut. I select all and then I copy it, which is for me Command C. And then I do Command N, File New. And what it does is it can remember. So what am I going to do? It's going to say, okay, is it a saved one? What is the information that's going to come across? So let me just do it again. Command A, copy new. And it's telling me here. So if you look on my pixel dimensions, it's got now, this is the dimensions of it in pixels. So it's grabbing all that information from the copy, and it's saying to me here how the pixels. So what I do is I change this to 300 dpi. Now the pixel dimensions haven't changed. So it does it. What it means is if I bring an image in at 72 dpi and then go to image size and change it to 300, it will become really big, but it will just pixelate. So you'll have a pixelated image. So I just do select all, I copy it, I do file new, and it remembers all the information, but it enables me to change the resolution, but not the scale.
Mhm.
It kind of sort of makes sense, but you'll see. Yeah, so we kind of go through the process. And on here, I'm just going to change to centimeters. So now you can see that image, which was 1 meter 42, is now 34 centimeters by 25. So what it's done is it's gone from 72 dpi and compressed it all the way to 300 dpi. So it's a little bit bigger than A4. Look, 34 by 25. So after I've made it that big to that small, it means at its best image, it's 34 centimeters, which is just a bit bigger than A4. Yeah, so on your phone, it's telling me that we can photograph it and A4's roughly the best size. It's sort of in between A4 and A3. Yeah, A4 and A3. If you imagine the height or the width of an A3 is 42 centimeters. So it's nearly A3. But you could scale up a bit. Yeah. So I'm going to press create, and then I'm going to paste in my image. Yeah. So I'm going to write this down in case you didn't understand any of that. Yeah. So all I'm doing is I'm getting the image, I'm selecting it all, I'm copying it, and then I'm converting it to 300 dpi before I start anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now this is to stop really bad habits. It's slow, it's slower, but it's to stop bad habits.
Yeah.
Because what people do is, say I have a piece of paper in Photoshop and I'm dragging all my images on because I want this mark, I want this line drawing, and then I just go, right, I'll make it bigger, I'll make it smaller. You're messing with the image size and the resolution all the time as you're changing images. So what happens is when you go to print, you're like, oh, that bit looks a little bit out of focus. This bit looks really dirty. This bit looks JPEG'd. And when you start looking at the final outcome, you don't have that. Like when my prints come back from the printer, they look like the drawing. That's what you want. You don't want there to be a discrepancy where you get your image back from the printers and say, oh, right, why is that so out of focus or low? It looked fine on the computer. So this stops all of them bad habits that you're sort of getting. So here now, I now go to image size. And then when I'm on here, I go, it's now 300 dpi. It's now looking at print resolution. So I'm always getting my work to get to print resolution before I start anything. So it's starting with get the basics right first, and then you can do all your messing about. Yeah. So it's really just, and it is a really arduous process and feels quite long and feels quite technical. But once you get into the habit of so it's opening all of your images in Photoshop first, and then literally spending time copying them and putting them into a new picture with making sure the resolution's 300 dpi. Yeah. So you can test that with some of your images you photograph with your phone, or whether you take them off the internet or whatever you're doing. So this is how I work every day, all day, when I'm bringing my work in and I'm using my phone. If I was using my scanner, I would set my scanner to 300 dpi, scan it at 300 dpi, and I wouldn't have to do all this messing about. But the reality is most of us are using this horrible thing to take photographs of our work, because we work so quick, we don't have much time. But you see, it still does good enough quality if you fix the resolution. Yeah. So it's just resolution is really important if you're a creative who wants to be in books or magazines or on billboards or whatever you want to do, or print to sell your work. Yeah, you've got to get this resolution issue fixed. And I see lots of illustrators or artists who are making really nice work, but they just don't document it well, and they don't move it up a notch. So there's a lot of color management happening. Yeah, so I've worked with most of the illustrators. So any illustrator who's probably high level, I've spoken to through our platform. So I get to know them, and you can see how professional they are, but they make it seem like there's not a lot of magic happening. There is. There's a lot of photoshopping going on in the background, because if I ask them to change anything, they can do it really fast, and it will be impossible without Photoshop. So I know it's happening. So I bring my image in. So you have two options for this image, because it's been photographed on paper. And I have to work out what is the final outcome that I want from my drawing. How's it going to be used, and where is it going to be used, and what do I want to keep and what don't I want to keep? So I brought my image in, and you can see here I have the background and I have the layer. So what I tend to do is I tend to make a duplicate of the drawing. Now you can do Command J. I'm going to show you a few ways. Command J, that duplicates the layer. It might be Control J on a PC. Yeah, the opposite. So now I have two layers. So I'm not going to touch this one, and I could say do not touch. I don't usually do that, but you might want to write. So if I was artworking and someone else was playing with it, I might say do not touch, because this is the original. I want to keep the original, yeah, on the artwork. So now here I can play with this image to how I want it. So I'm just going to press Command plus so I can look at it, so we can see the quality. And this is at what percent is that? That's 200%. So 100%, the quality is pretty good. Yeah. And that's on my phone. So we can see the quality is really nice. I think if I played with it a bit, there'd be maybe a bit of JPEGing in the paper. But I need to work out what I want to do with this image. So here, I'm going to do a few options. Option one is I want to clean it up, bring it back to, so it looks really clean and fresh. So here, I'm going to press Command U. Now, Command U is hue and saturation. So here, I'm just going to show you different ways of getting it. So you can go, right, where do we want to go? Edit, transform, not transform. Let's see, image adjustments. Right, so I've remembered all the shortcuts. So image adjustments, hue and saturation. So I'm thinking about a person who wants to clean up their images to then have them to be used as if I was drawing on a beautiful white piece of paper that's really clean. So I'm going to hue and saturation. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take away all the color from the drawing. Yeah, I want to bring it back to black and white. And the reason for making it black and white is so I can clean it up as if it's a black and white drawing. Yeah, as if I'd drawn it with black and white. Now, I've kept the original because I might still like that blue color that was on the page here. So you might say, I still like them, but I really am thinking about the line work here, not about the colors. Remember, I forget about color. I'm thinking about, right, I just want that line drawing, and then I can bring colors back. Bringing color back is easy. It's really about that line work and the page. So I take the saturation out. So using hue and saturation. So I took out my saturation. And I do a really simple thing, is I go down the page and we have, so you've got your move tool. So if I want to move my image about, so here we have the move tool. And then next you have the marquee tool. So here, if I want to make selections, so I'm clicking and making selections. Yeah, so this is to make a selection on the page. And then the one below here is similar to make selections. And this is the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to click all the way around this person to eliminate the excess paper I don't need. So I'm going to click all the way around. So now it's made a selection all the way around. So I click all the way around and I've got here. Now it has selected the positive space. Yeah, so we've selected the positive. So if we go to select and then we select inverse, it will flip my selection and select the negative. Yeah, so I've made the positive selection and I'm inverting it because I want just to make the outside white. So here I've got black and white as my colors. And if you had color here, so for example, let me just put a color here, and I had a color there. Photoshop's like this. I want white to be a color because I want to clean up my paper. Yeah, so I'm just press the black and white button and it will reset it back to black and white. Yeah, so you can reset many of these things. So I now want to make this negative space white. Yeah, so I'm going to press, so you've got here, do we want Command delete, and that fills with the background color. Yeah, so if I press Command delete and if I press Option, which is on my machine, plus, it fills with the foreground color. Yeah, and we're going to test this in a minute, so you're going to have a go. I'm just going for it. So I'm pressing Command backspace or Command delete or Control delete. Yeah, or you can just fill it in here, image paste the color. We're going to do Command delete. So now I've got this white area here. And then I'll press Control D. Control D is to deselect. Yeah, or select, and then you have deselect up here. Yeah, so selections, deselect. So I'm just cleaning up my image. And then next, I noticed that I've got this gray. I want to get rid of this gray. And I think, Deborah, you were talking about levels earlier.
Yes.
So I'm going to press Command L for levels. And again here, image adjustment levels here. And then on the levels on this page here, I've got shadows, midtones, highlights. And what I do is I move this down. So this is what is known as the dirty area, the gray area. So I'm moving this just below. And now it's cleaned up my whole image. And if I want to make the black blacker, so if I zoom in a bit, I can move this mid-tone up to make the contrast. So now I can choose. So look, I'm bringing back some of my highlights, mid-tones. Or if I wanted something more graphic and really black, I could bring that right the way up. So it depends on the outcome. If you want that more watercolory feel, let's say we want that more watercolory. So my black pen drawing is here. And then I'll press OK. Yeah, so we now have this drawing in black and white. So what I want you to do, I'm just going to see if I can get it into the chat. Got it. Let me just make a screenshot.
So can I ask, why not select all the dark parts of your image and then invert the selection and do your levels on all of the white?
Right, okay. That's actually a good question. So I'm just trying to put this in the chat. Hopefully you can get it all. I've sent you my image in the chat.
Yeah.
So you can download that and we can go through this process together. So I'm just going to move back to where we were. We can see. And I'm pressing Command Z to go back. Yeah, so if you want to go back a step, you just press Command Z and it moves back a step, or edit, undo. Yeah, so you could either go back So are you able to download both of you? Can you
Yeah,
download
I've
my
got it.
drawing?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Got it.
So now what I want you to do is to drag it into Photoshop. So in answer to your question, Deborah, is
Mhm.
you were saying to do something, I'm guessing, were you using the magic wand to do that? How are you going to make your selection?
No, there is a selection tool. Sorry, I forgot the name of it.
Quick
Where is
selection
it?
tool?
Yes, that's a quick selection.
So
You can either do that or use the color range.
right, yes. So that's way advanced.
Okay.
We can get to that, but it's good it's a good question. So see you're doing this tool. I'm just going around here clicking. Yeah, so what Deborah was asking, Laura,
Yeah.
was if we made a selection of the lines
Yeah.
and then inversed the
Yeah.
selection. I'm going off what you said, Deborah. Inverse
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
selection and then use levels. Right. The reason I don't do that is because sometimes it puts a little white crispy edge around the edge of my drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, but it all depends on, say you were using a pencil drawing.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a lot more complex if you had like a charcoal or something like that.
Yes.
That making that selection and then subtleties, it tends to add a little bit of an edge sometimes. Only if you're printing, like when I'm printing work, and say if it was A1 and you were really looking into it, you want to make it as near to yours as possible. And
Yeah.
but everyone has their own process. Yeah, it doesn't mean mine's right or yours is wrong. It's just you have your process, and using color channels and stuff like that, and getting the blacks, using channel paths, all of them areas, they're all different ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
50 ways to make a selection. Yeah, so as you see, I'm just showing you another way. So what I want you to do quickly is if you could go into Photoshop and I want us to go through this journey again. So I've sent you a 72 DPI image. Yeah, so just double check that. So if you open the image in Photoshop, don't drag it into Photoshop. It won't really matter here. But if you can both open it in Photoshop, so open
Yeah.
the image, and then I want you to just go to, I'm going to open it as well. And I'm
Image
going to go
size.
to image size. And it's telling me, so look,
I
Resolution
have
144.
so I did a
exactly.
screenshot.
Yeah.
So I did a screenshot. So the resolution of my screen is 144 DPI. So my Mac screen is different from my phone. So it just shows you different machines are shooting at different levels. So we're saying, okay, so what I'm going to do, we're going to go through my process. So we do select all. So select, if you go to select all or Command A, your shortcut is it Control A, Laura?
Yeah.
Right, so Control A, select all. Then I want you to do Command C,
Yeah.
which is copy. And then I want you to go to File, New. And then now you see the image resolution and dimensions here. Can you see it? See it?
Yeah.
If on yours, yours should say 144. Is it
Yeah.
saying on yours, Deborah? Now change that resolution to 300 dpi. And let's just check it at the size. So it's gone down a bit from me doing a screenshot. It's now 16 by 12 in height, but that's doing from a screenshot. So that's not too bad. It just shows the screen resolution is really high on a Mac. I don't know what it is what was your resolution on your screen when you photographed it, Laura? What was
When
your
I
pixel dimension?
when I took your picture and it was 144.
But what was it? Was it the same? Is it the same here? Oh yeah, because I screenshot it that you
You
did.
screenshot it. Yeah.
I'd like to have seen if you screenshot it if you were the same.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So we've got here, I've changed it to 300 DPI and press create. And then I do Command V, I paste
Yeah.
it in. So we paste the image.
Yeah.
So now what I'd like you to do is you're going to use this tool, the polygon lasso tool, and just go around my figure. We're going to go all the way around. We've made a selection. Yeah. I don't know how fast or slow you are at polygon tool.
Okay.
Done. Deborah, have you done it?
Yeah.
Good. Right. So go to select and then do select inverse. If you can remember the shortcuts, there's Shift Command I. You could use the shortcut. And now I've got my background color and my foreground color. I want pure white here. And then I'm going to press Command backspace, like Command delete. And I think yours might be Control delete, but you can let me know.
Uh,
Edit fill, so it's a little bit different. I want to do background. Did it work on your shortcut?
no, it deleted the whole thing, so I went back.
Had you made your are you on the right layer or
I think so.
what we can do is we can fill it with the paint tool. You could try different options. So if you go down here, there's many different. I'm trying to think of on the PC what was the fill option.
Oh, wait a minute. It didn't make another layer, so with my control paste,
Ah, okay.
I'll put in another layer, sorry.
So you've made your selection and were you able to fill it?
Not yet, sorry.
Okay, so here I'm just testing fill
Okay.
background color. Okay. So if you don't know the shortcut, you can go to edit fill and then I can select background color and then press OK and then it will fill it with the background color. Did that manage to work, Laura?
Sorry, I just had to put another layer into it, so I didn't and then I need to select it again.
Okay. There's no race. We just got to make sure you learn it.
Yeah.
So I guess questions for you, Deborah. Are
Mhm.
you using much of this process for cleaning up your artwork?
Yeah, I spend hours doing that. So I play with the color range, I play with the quick selection tool, I play with the pen, just to get every bits and to have the whitest background as I can.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
on what I submitted for Zornai was different because I had a bit of a shading with the ink. So
yeah,
I had to play with the blending mode so that I, it could blend with the white background.
yeah,
But otherwise, yes, I would spend a lot of time on this.
yeah. And what you can do, and I have done myself, is I might clean up the drawing and then I'll scan in a piece of paper so I can have a really nice high resolution paper as a backdrop.
Yes,
Yeah. So if
that
you want
also, yeah.
a different textured background, so if you wanted a special GF Smith paper or a piece of wallpaper or a piece of wood. Yeah, the nice thing here is you could bring in all these different elements, and I'll show you another thing that's quite handy to know. So, Laura, were you able to do it? Did it
Yeah,
work?
yeah, I'm there now. Yeah.
You're up with us.
Yeah.
And are you similar to us on the layers? You've got a background layer, and then
I've
you've
got a background and I've got I don't touch.
yeah.
Mm.
Oh, you've done it correct. I've done it wrong. Well done. Good, 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 good. Right, so let's deselect this. So you can press Command D. So Command D or Control D to deselect the selection.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go to hue and saturation. So image, adjustments, hue and saturation. And I'm just going to take all the color out of the drawing
Okay.
and then press OK. So now we've got this sort of grey coloured image, but a really harsh black coloured image. So then I'm going to try and do it through here. So image, adjustments, levels. we're going to go to levels, and you should have this come up. And then on the levels, I'm going to move down this. This is so that big high peak is just showing you the grays. So I'm going to move it all the way down. And I guess, Deborah, you could have done some of this on your Zorna work if you wanted to do.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, good. And then I can move this mid-tone up and down depending on how much contrast I want on the watercolor. So it's quite important. So when you're at this stage, you could be asking yourself, do I want it really black, like a bitmap, like a photocopy, or do I want it more with halftones? And if you think, which I said earlier, is not to care about trends, the trend of the moment is watercolor drawing. So here I would say, okay, it's not so much about flat block colors, it's more about subtleties and that sort of look and feel. I will bring down so I have more of my watercolor feel. Yeah, because as a creative, you can have your drawing line, but you might notice that more trends are using watercolor brush marks or mark making. You're not changing the way that you draw. You're just adapting to what's people like at the moment, and that's normal. So don't feel that you're compromising. You're not. What you're doing is you're moving around because you want to be a professional. You want to stay alive. You need to look after yourself, and you want to buy more cappuccinos or whatever you want to do with your money. That's all. It seems like everyone's buying cappuccinos all the time. But here we have our sort of drawing, and I'm going, okay. But if you see, I'm thinking all the time about the outcome. I'm thinking about what is happening in the industry at the moment. And I'm looking and I'm trying to understand, and I'm saying, okay, I haven't had much work recently. What am I going to do to convince more people to like my work? Okay. So, and I've had issues with it because sometimes when it's too black or too graphic, commissioning people will say to me, it feels too aggressive. So I'll have to knock it back a bit and make the drawings more subtle. So using them washes of watercolors and marks in there. So I have to adapt. I want to get the commission and I want to win work. So I have to move, and I'm still working for other people. So it's just to get you to understand that you do have to adapt. I'm not being a stubborn artist and going, it's my way or no other. You do listen to the art directors, and they give you feedback, and they will constantly give you feedback. Okay, so we all have this clean drawing.
Yeah.
Now, usually what I do is I just save it in case something happens. So I'm just going to press Command S to save. And it's a PSD because we have layers. So Photoshop document. And I'm just going to call this Fendi 1. So we got Fendi1.psd. And I've got it, and I'm going to save it to my desktop. And I'll press OK. So now we've got our image that we're going to save to the desktop. So the next thing I'll be thinking about is, how am I going to color this character or this person, and what is my process that I'm going to use? And also, me being more of a printmaker, I want, and I don't know how any of you do it, is there's a few little tricks, well, not tricks, but a way of thinking more like a printmaker when we used to use Photoshop really early, is using the channels. So you have layers, channels, paths. And I don't know if you use channels, Deborah, but I use them a little bit. So
A little bit, yeah, not so much.
here I have my layers, and then I'm going to go to channels. So if you click on channels, and you have these different color modes, and then down the bottom you have this little circle with dots. Can you see the circle with dots?
Yeah.
And it's called load channel as selection. So click on that. And now what it's done is it's selected anything that has from 0 gray to total black. Yeah. So at the white area now is not selected. It's just the where there's any tone. So it's selecting from tone. And this is like as if you were working like a printmaker. If I was doing a t-shirt or something like that, this is how I worked when I was doing the Dior stuff. So it's made a selection. And because I don't, has your one selected the border as well? Can you see a dashed line
Yeah,
on the border?
mine has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it means similar to mine is selecting the inverse. So let's try both. I just want to show you both. So let's go to select inverse. So we're inversing the selection. So, and that's a good thing to look for. If you see the border around the edge, it means it's selected the negative area. Yeah. So just have a little check for that. And then go back to your layers. Back to your layers. And do a new layer. So across the bottom, you have a little plus sign and it says plus, and now I'm making a new layer.
Yeah.
So we have a new layer. And then what I want you to do is let's just test it. I want this ink drawing to be in a red. Let's just say we want it to be red. So we're going to go to our foreground color here, and I'm just going to pick a red and then press OK. Yeah. Okay, so everybody's changed their color to a red. And then I'm going to press, on mine, I don't know, on the PC, we're going to have to check, is Option backspace, delete. And it will fill in my color with the foreground color, where the black is. So for you, Laura, it might be edit. Let's go to image. Where is it?
So what we do, we're filling foreground. So
You're going to fill with the foreground. I'm trying to remember the shortcut. Mine is Option backspace, but I'm trying to remember on the PC. It might be Shift backspace.
Okay, I'll try that.
If not, you go to Edit, Fill, and then we pick foreground color, press OK, and then it will fill it. Did you get that, or do you want me to show you that again?
So it's Shift F5 is short.
And is it filling it with the foreground color?
Yeah.
Fill it with the red. Good. Okay. Did yours work as well, Deborah?
Yeah, sorry, I was tweaking a little bit the selection. So say again, sorry.
So we've made the selection and you filled it with the red.
Oh yeah, okay.
With the channel. So we've made a selection with the channel.
Yes.
And now we've filled it with the red. So has it done that? Yeah?
Yeah.
And it's also on a new layer. So you can turn off all the other layers. So now you can see your drawing on this as a red line drawing.
Yes.
So I've just turned off the other layers. So if I turn them all off and leave that on, you can see it's all transparent. See there? So this is really nice for you to make drawings. And if you think about transparent PNG, if you wanted to put a certain image in the background, or I wanted to bring in a colored piece of paper, for example, I could overlay this onto a piece of paper. So let me just try that. I'm going to do background, new layer, and I'm going to change the color. Let's just say, let's make it a purple color. And press OK. And then I'm just going to fill it. So you can see we have this sort of, it looks like a print, like a screen print on top. So it gives you that print. Yeah, you could, I can change that color a bit. Let me just change it a bit. So look, you can see here. I'll show you that in a minute. So I've filled it with a color. So if I've got two layers now, I've just made a new layer and I've filled it with, you can choose any color you want. We could have a blue. Let's just say we have a blue. And here's our color. Yeah, so now I have my drawing almost looking like it's sitting on top of this color. So I don't know if you've ever used this technique, Deborah, to work with.
No, I haven't. This is really good.
So this is really good for you to have almost like printmaking layers, because I think like a printmaker. So I always work with opaque layers on top of each other, and then you have the ability to move the opacity up and down. Yeah, where you may have done this. I'm just going to go through a different thought process. So just to show you here, Laura, is
Yeah.
another way of thinking, which is where a lot of illustrators do, is they go to layer 1, where I have my drawing, which is a black and white, and
Yeah.
I go to multiply. And I don't know if that's what most people will use. And then if I
Yeah.
watch this, if I put it on my background, it makes the white transparent. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. The only thing is, watch, if I make it a different color, for example, let's say I colorize it and make it red, it goes transparent because it's multiplying. So you don't have what I've done, which is this opaque
Yeah.
100% color on top of another color. Yeah, so it's a really nice technique that I use. So it enables me to make my drawings really strong. So if I don't like red, so we don't like the red of the drawing. So I send it to the art director and he goes, hate red, fix it now.
Yeah.
Then I go, okay, so I'm going to go, right, I want to change the color. So I'm going to go to image adjustments and I'm going to go to hue and saturation. And then on the hue, I can change this to any color that I want.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And then I can
Yeah.
change the saturation if I don't like, and I can bring it back to black or I can make it white. So it's 100% opaque. And so this is a really good technique for you to have full control over every layer ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good technique for me because it meant that I could always have. So if any art director said, change this, change that, and they do, they're
Yeah.
always asking you, change that, make the shoe red, make the shoe purple, no, make it green. So they have a lot of changes. So you have to be prepared for all of these changes. And what I can do, so I'm going to just press cancel again. And I might say, all right, so I'm looking at this line drawing. And what I want to do is I want to change parts of it. So I'm imagining now that I'm going to have this drawing and I'm going to act as if I had a paintbrush and I was using all my paints and I've got this beautiful line drawing, but I want to change elements of it. So what I do now is I will go into here. I'm going to turn that blue off and I'm going to say, I like this bit of red, but this inner part of the leg, I want to change the color. So quite quickly, I can make a selection because remember, it's on a transparent background. I'm making a selection of that piece and I go to image adjustments, hue and saturation. And now I can just change that piece of the paint. So that bit of color. And I can say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going back to my blue. So remember earlier, I said, don't worry about color. We can change all of these colors later. So that's why I do this very opaque. So now I've got this nice green. And then someone says, I want that line drawing of that shoe. I don't want it to be in red. I'll go through along here. Make a selection. I'm going to show you the shortcut, Command U, and I'm going to change the color of my shoe. And I can say, okay, well, Valentino shoes this month are more of a pinky color. So I'm going, okay. And now I've got this line drawing. I'm going to put the blue back on. So now you can see I've got this drawing and I'm able to now play about with different parts of it. Yeah, so see if you can go in quickly and just change little bits of the parts of the drawing and hue and saturation to change different colors and different parts of it. So we're going to go in and I'm just going to change. We'll make it multicolored. So I'm just going to go around. So if you just go in, just getting used to using one of the shortcuts and changing parts of it. So I'll say, I'm going to make this bit white. Go wrong here. Now let's go for more that similar pink. There's similar pink. And I might say the heel is a different color. I want to bring back some of that black. I've got black heel. Let's go black for the base of the shoe. And we'll do the black on the bottom of this as well. hue, black. And now I've got this nice graphic drawing. So if we think where we were, we had, so if I go back to my original, you'll see that we had that really, this, which looks like a sketch. So we have this sort of sketch, and then now we're now bringing it to something that could be more used in a commercial point of view. So it feels more finished, feels more graphic, feels like something that, right, Fendi might, we've got no logo or typography in here yet, but it's something that I think, and with fashion, they love them sort of really simple line marks and beautiful line marks that you can make. And they're like, okay, this is really nice. I like that. I like this tone. I like this piece. I want that. So they're quite picky about how they do it. So were you all able to change different colors? I think we've lost Deborah. Can you still hear me, Laura?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah.
Good, good. We lost Deborah. She's back.
I'm back.
Right. So did you were you both able to change colors on the actual line drawing? Did you do it?
Yeah.
Did you do it, Laura?
Now I've done the selection and I go to image adjustments, hue and saturation,
Yep.
and it doesn't seem to change it for some reason.
Right. Okay. Check what layer are you on? What layer are you
Yeah,
on?
I've checked. I'm on the same layer because I did that mistake already. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So
Um,
you've made a selection. Let's go through this journey together. So I'm making a selection of the back
yeah,
of my leg.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I've gone to image,
Oh,
adjustments.
wait a minute. Wait a minute. I had an extra layer that I wasn't looking at. Yeah.
Ah. Yeah, that's the classic easy mistake, is just
Yeah.
check you're on the right layer.
Yeah.
So image adjustments, hue and saturation, and then just change the color. Did it work now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So we have our sort of color here, and we're saying, okay, we're sort of happy with this. Yeah. And we're thinking,
Mhm.
what kind of marks or colors would I like on this? So we're going to be a bit, I'm going to bring in some brush marks. Now, if I had to do a rough or a mock-up for someone, I might even go onto the internet and I'll be saying, okay, let me just find some images. So let's just say we go on the internet. Let's go to Google. Hopefully the internet's going to work. So I'm going to go onto Google. And we're in Google. And you can go onto Google as well and just type in brush marks. Now, if I'm doing it myself, I would never go down this process, but this is still a process that you can use. So don't feel that, oh, well, I can't use the internet. Everything needs to be handmade. I can't, Google's the Antichrist or something like that. Don't think like that. Yeah, you can go on here and there's some really simple things that are useful. So we go on to brush marks and then I'm going to go images. So I click on images. The reason I'm showing you this is because sometimes you can use these tools. So
Yeah.
in here you have all of these different options. But what we're trying to do is use some that have got quite good resolution as well. So I'm going to go on to the tools. I've got my tools. Look at more. Let's just click on tools and then size and then go to large. So we now select large. So here, these images that are on here should be of a good resolution. Yeah, so pretty good mark making. So I'm going to go on here and I'm just going to look around and I'm just going to look for a brush mark. So here I've found an image. Let's see if there's one that's not so transparent. I'll go back to this. Let's just say it's this one. So find any brush mark that you can find. And I'm just going to drag it onto my desktop. So it's giving me a PNG here. This looks like a vector illustrated PNG, which is fine. Let's see if I can find some others. So we're just going to collect it. Here we go. What's this? This doesn't look too bad. So here's another one. Just going to drag that onto my desktop. JPEG. So I've got two marks here. See my two. I've got this one that looks like a vector, and then this one, which is a watercolor. So I have two marks. Yeah? So if you could download from Google two different marks. So one is like a graphic mark, and one is quite watercolory. And we're going to try and use a bit of our other process to fix this image. We want to add in a few brush strokes into this image or some marks. So here, I'm going to get my grunge one. I'm just going to drag it into Photoshop, not onto the layer, onto a new document. Now, what I would do here, because this is another way of you fixing the resolution. So I'm going to show you how to do it externally as well. So did you manage to both get a mark each?
Yes.
And open it in Photoshop? Did you do it, Laura, as well?
I haven't put it into Photoshop yet. I'm just doing the second one. Yeah.
Okay. And I found a very black and white one. Feel that
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm assuming you both have like a white, a brush stroke on a white. I've made it white, so it makes sense. So I've just dragged it into Photoshop in its own like file open. So I haven't put it on in the image. Yeah, I'm working outside of the image. And what I'm going to do is let's go through the same process. So we learn it properly. So we go channels. We then press the little circles with the dots. Yep.
Yeah.
You can see the dashed lines around the outside. So it's showing
Yeah.
it's selected negative. So we go select, inverse your selection.
Yeah.
Then layers, go to layers. New layer, make a new layer.
Yeah.
And then pick a color. Let's just say a color doesn't matter. So we can do blue. So I'm just going to fill it with blue. So I've got option backspace. So I filled it with blue. So you can see. So now I have this sort of big brush stroke. Yeah. So everyone should have a brush stroke. I've done it with blue and I've turned off my other layer so you can see it's transparent on the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now go to select all. So select all. So it selects it all. Then copy, Command C, and then go back to your Fendi drawing and then Command V. And now I've got this brush stroke in there, but it's blue. So I'm going to just change the color of it. So I'll go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. And I'm just going to change. So we've got this brush mark. Maybe let's go for a more. And then I'm just going to move it to the layer below. So now you've got this brush mark and you can move this brush mark around accordingly or make it smaller. So I'm going to make it, let's just say we want to make it smaller. I'm going to do Command T to transform, or edit, transform, scale. So here I'm just going to, and if I go to the corner and I press Shift, it will scale in proportion. So let's say we wanted to do one of the shoes like this. Yeah, so
Yeah.
did you manage to do that as well, Deborah?
Yeah.
Excellent. So now I've got one brush stroke here, and then I've got my other mark. Let's go and get that one. So I'm going to open that in Photoshop and just to go through the same process. Because it's orange, I'd make it grayscale. Yeah, so Command U take the color out, because color we can bring back. And then channels, select the little circle with the dots. It's around the edges. So select inverse. I quite like that orange. So let's bring that orange in. Press OK. Because it's a gray, it will be semi-transparent as well, which will be nice. So I go to new layer. I fill it with orange. Then I select all. I copy it. And then I paste it into my Fendi. So now look, it's a sort of semi-transparent brush mark rather than a really strong one. And as you see, it's gone to the resolution of the page. So we're quite, I'm showing you like quicker options there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what you can do is, now we've got these paintbrush marks. If I press Command J, I could duplicate that. And then what I can do is, I'm going to press transform. I can start using that and playing with the shape of that to make my own new brushes or new marks. So I can play with this. And look, you've got a little bit of an overlay as well. So now it's got a sort of tonal value. And again, I could do hue and saturation. I might change the color. So I want it more red or more lighter. So more skin color. And so we're building up this sort of drawing of marks. Yeah, so I'm sort of playing. And I've got no plan. Yeah, I had no plan. Yeah, it's literally instinctive thinking about graphic mark making, cleaning up my image, making it. I guess the overarching point of this sort of class is to think about cleaning up your image, making it to a resolution that's the correct resolution for print, and then working on your image in an experimental way that could be something quite graphic and something that feels like, oh, this could be, I might say, if I turn all these layers off, just as an example, if I turn these layers off here, and this was in one color, just to show you, which I've done on a job. Let me just put it to one color. And colorize. So I'm just bringing it back to one color. Say this, I could say to someone, this could be a block foil print on an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm giving ideas to my client. So I did a job for Shiseido, and we had to design cards. They wanted a full color illustration. I said, it's not classy enough. And I did a series of just line drawings and said, why don't you save your money and do a really nice block foil print onto a red card? And they went with it, and they didn't even consider that. And it's only through me being able to show this look and feel that they could have ideas and then go, okay, I understand what you were saying. And you can be more experimental. You could say, okay, well, then if we want to do brush marks, maybe you could have the background digitally printed and then a block foil print on top of a foil color. It could be in bronze or gold. So you're giving ideas across to make better work. Yeah. So always you're pushing the client to understand, how can I get a better outcome? And you're sort of grappling with them and giving them ideas. And this would be done in the real early parts of when I'm doing a commission, to get people to really think about the work that I'm doing. So it's kind of giving you little bits of ideas and sort of play. So I'm going to just save this again. I just want to save it. The reason I'm saving, I don't know if you've noticed, Photoshop's crashing a lot, and InDesign's crashing a lot as well. So I don't know what's going on with Adobe, but it usually tends to bring it back. But I've just got a habit of saving. So I'll save my images. Now I'll be thinking also, how could I work with this to maybe make an animation? Yeah, so we might want to animate this. So I have all of these layers. So let's just have a look at these layers that we have. So I've made a few layers. So if you want to make, so we all have a few layers on here. Yeah, so if you look at mine, so if you can make as many layers I've got one here, 2, 3, the line drawing 4. I've got 4 or 5 layers. Yeah. And I'm thinking I might want to show this to someone on social media. And I'm thinking I'd like to make a little animation from this, like a quick GIF animation. So if you go to Window and you've got Timeline, click on your timeline here, and it opens up at the bottom. And you've got Create Frame Animation. So can you see that? And you've got 2 options, Create Video Animation or Create Frame Animation. Yeah, so are you both able to see that, your timeline?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you see that as well, Laura?
Yeah, I've just got the timeline up. Yeah.
Excellent. And can you see, does it say Create Frame Animation?
Could create video.
Okay,
Okay, I've changed to create frame. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so when you're doing a little animation, the good thing is we've made all the content. So I tend to make all the content first, and then I do the animating. Rather than I want to do an animation, I'll press animation, and then I'll make it as I go along. No, have everything ready, and then do your animation. Yeah, so get all your layers. We've built all of our layers to turn on and off. What we want to do, and then I'll click create frame animation. So let's say create frame animation. So here we have a frame animation. And what I'm going to do is I'll just turn all the layers off apart from my background layer. So here's my first layer, my first animation layer. And now I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to turn on one of my brush marks. So if you all turn on a brush mark. And I'm going to create another layer. So if you see down here, you can create layers. So you've got forever. So mine's going to loop forever. You've got reverse, back, full play, forwards, onion skin, and create a layer. So you're able to create a layer. Were you able to create a new keyframe, Laura?
No, sorry. What did you do to start off with?
I've
turned off all your layers and
I've
then
turned all my layers off, and I've just got a blue.
yeah.
And then what I did is I went down the bottom, and there's a thing that says create new keyframe. Can you see that?
No, I can't. So where is it on your screen?
So if I follow all the way down, you'll see down the bottom here.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've got it. It's got like a little square with a plus in it.
Where with a
It's
plus?
duplicate selected frames. Does yours have that?
No, it's got the scissors. It's got the
Let me see what your tools are. Okay,
got
let's try.
selectors, transition.
So let's go. So on here.
Did you start a new thing or something? Did you have to start something new first?
1 second. Does yours have? You're right. Go backwards, because I think what you've done is you've selected video animation, not frame animation.
No, I've got frame animation.
But it doesn't look like this though, does it? Yours has got the scissors and everything on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that means you selected the other one. So go to edit, undo.
All right. Okay. I've got edit, undo.
Keep going back. So I'm gonna join you by going back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Until this pops back again.
It's create frame animation. I've got.
Right. And then click on create frame animation.
Oh, right. You have to click on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got it now. Yeah.
Okay, good. So now you have this little picture in the keyframe.
Yeah.
Good. Now turn all the layers off.
Yeah.
So we just have the blue.
Okay. Yeah.
And then if you go along the bottom, you'll see a little plus sign that says duplicate frame.
Yeah.
Good. Click on it. Right, now turn on one of the brush strokes. Anyone,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then do duplicate frame again. And then let's turn on another brush stroke.
Yeah.
And then the same again. Same again until you get your drawing. I think I've got one more mark down the bottom, which is this one. I'm going to maybe make that white because that blue's a bit too harsh for my liking. Okay, so look, we've
Yeah.
got, so if I play this, it will play this.
Ah, brilliant.
So did you play yours, Deborah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've played it. Now it's way too fast. I'd have
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to
so
feel a bit
if
sick. Yeah.
so if we go along the frames and you press shift, you can click on the first one and the last one, and it will select all the frames.
Yeah.
And then go to the seconds and change it to 0.2. So it should be a bit slower. Let's have a look.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. So on the last frame, I reckon I'm just going to make that a second so it can have a rest. So if I click on it, it'll,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've
Yeah.
got a looping animation. All right. So now I'm just going to stop that, and we want to export it. So if I want to use it, so if I want to use it in an email or on my website, so it plays automatically on my website, I go to File, and then we've got a few options here. So we've got, let's
Export.
say we want to save it as a video. Yeah, we want to export as a video. Where's my save web?
Export as. Yeah.
There we go. Export, and here we've got video, render video. So I'm going to render the video, and it's called Fendi One, and we're going to have it as a high quality because you want it as good quality. And then I'm going to just press render, and it should appear on your desktop. And then here's your animation.
Yes.
Yeah. So now this you can share. You can share on Instagram.
Ah, right.
You
So
can post it on Instagram.
do you do all of your animation through Photoshop?
I do everything through Photoshop.
Okay.
It
No,
depends on the animations that I want to do, but I use Photoshop for all my. I can use Premiere.
yeah.
I can use QuickTime or whatever you want to do.
No, because I had used Fresco for the animation, but I struggled a little bit with it, and it looks on Photoshop much easier than what I did. Especially, managing the time length of your animation.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if you used, so I'm showing what I call here is a stop frame animation.
Yes.
And this is like stop frame, so it feels like a GIF. They're like a GIF animation. Where if you had more video content in there on top, so sometimes if you've seen on our posts, we'll have videos that show from a fashion show, and then on top I'll have some drawings or animations or whatever. I'll use the other option, which is more the video option.
Yes.
And it's so easy to use. And the only problem is the files become quite heavy. Where
Heavy, yeah.
Premiere would be much easier. But you still can do this here. And I feel that the market is still loving stop frame GIF animations. So I feel that there's a real desire for you to get your drawings out there and be quite playful. And they're 6 seconds, you can make them very short. Like this is only going to be a few seconds. So because Instagram, I'm not too sure if it needs more than 3 seconds.
Yes, it does.
Right. So if it needs more than 3 seconds, what I do is I select all of the frames, and then I press Option and I drag it, and it will duplicate it.
Yes.
So I'll duplicate this. So I'll do it a few times. So I'm duplicating that. And what that does is it means that my animation will get up to 3 seconds. And then you won't have that problem. Yeah. So you're really creating the loop for your animation. And then what I tend to do is when I'm at this point, I then go into this and then I just move them all around. I might as well close my eyes.
Yeah.
And then you can jiggle them about. So it doesn't feel too monotone. So when I play it, it moves everything everywhere. So it could play a bit, another bit. So it feels more dynamic rather than repetitive. Yeah, so you can be quite creative with it. So it's quite an experimental sort of playground of stuff to do. So what I guess from this point is we save it. So I've saved this already, and you've got your video. So you just re-export it. So I'm just going to export it, file, export, render video, and then I'll just call this Fendi V2. So it's the longer version. And as you see, it's quite exporting quite fast, so it won't be too heavy. The other bit I would suggest, so you can message it to yourself or email it to other people, I'll just check how big that file is. It still might not be
Yeah.
too big. 1.1 megs is nothing.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really small. So that's good news, but that's 5.4 megs. So I don't know if you ever check your information. Do you ever check yours on yours,
I
Laura?
do.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah, so good. So that's good. Everyone's becoming a bit more savvy. Well, not everybody, because I still get sent 80 megabyte files for stuff. So, and they wonder why they don't get through. So it is a simple, it seems quite simple, but it's just checking megabytes, images, and if you're applying for certain things, even emailing a client, making sure it's below 10 megabytes. Anything that you send will not get there over 10 megabytes. So just sort of be aware of that. And I guess I've given you a few challenges to do going forward. So the next time we meet, also Laura, I'm going to add you to the Slack group. So Deborah's on Slack, where you can share your images and your files. So there's other people on there who haven't been able to come today. And then, people give feedback. It's quite good. Deborah's on there already, where people give you feedback, advice. They talk about horrible things, AI. I think in general, everyone's quite nice to each other. But on there is, if you want someone put up their work and said, if anyone could give me some feedback, and if I think there's a certain person who's good to give you feedback, I'll point them to that person. So if I think, so we've got academics on there. We've got loads of tutors from Leeds, Brighton, SCAD, Royal College, you name it, a whole array of. So it's quite a nice place because I think there's about 40 teachers on there who teach at all the universities around the UK and America. So we've got a wide range of, and they're all visiting lecturers at all these universities as well. So there's a massive array of academics, and you've got professionals, Nuno, Da Costa, all of them. They're all hidden in there somewhere, just giving feedback, looking at work, and sharing ideas. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's there all the time. And also you can DM me on Slack, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So you can send me, here's some work I've done recently. So what I'd like you to do, in response to today, is to get your illustrations, your drawings, and put them through a similar process that we have done. So we have just gone through this journey, and I want to see what you've learned, what you've remembered, test yourself. You don't need to use the same technique as me, as in drawing style. You could use pencil, you can use biro, any medium that you want, but you can photograph it with your phone, you can clean it up in Photoshop, you can make sure it's the right resolution, it works, it's clean. And then I'd love to see a little animation at the end as a sort of outcome. So you've got, here's my static image. So you could send me a static image. That could be a screenshot, or you can say, like, I'll do file, save as, and then just save it as a JPEG to me. Here it's giving me a TIFF, but a TIFF, JPEG, whatever. But a screenshot is fine. Yeah. So if you want to send me a screenshot to keep the resolution low, and just send it to me and say, here's the image that I've done. And I would suggest 3 minimum. If you could do 3, if you've got the time. And over the next week, so I can assess them, give you some feedback. And also I was just looking at one of our other videos from a really good Royal watercolor artist who's a portrait artist as well. I'm going to send you their file, and they show you about different techniques of drawing as well. Her
Great.
name's Martha Zampona or something like that. I can't remember her surname, but she's a really well-known. She works at UAL, LCF on the fashion illustration course, and
Mm.
she's amazing. She's an amazing artist, and she's got really nice videos on there. So I'm going to send you a link to watch of hers, and she goes through a whole process of drawing with watercolors and just to understand a bit more drawing that then brings into Photoshop, into the digital space. So it's really nice, that sort of segue from hand drawing craft to working on the computer and sort of thinking through the computer. So if you're stuck or you're lost, I think we've gone through it a few times, so you should be able to get to this point. And I'd love to see you like masking tape, whatever you want. Be really playful. But if we could get 3 done with 3 animations by the end of this, like by this week, even into the beginning of next week, depending on your schedule, would be really nice. And as you see, I didn't need to have more than probably 10 frames in my animation. So really sort of test yourself. And my other thing is try and make your marks yourself. I went on to Google because I wanted them fast, but make your own, if I look in my sketchbooks, I'm making my own marks. Yeah, all my marks are mine. Yeah, so look, collages. Yeah, so in my sketchbooks, this is how I'm working and drawing all the time, doing marks and backgrounds, collages, more marks. Yeah, so you're making all the mark making is yours. Yeah, so doing collage, watercoloring, making notes. Yeah, this is me. Look, just playing constantly, experimenting. There's not one style or technique. Yeah, and this is all about, and look, even doing different line work, shapes, forms. Yeah. So really get playful on the paper and then think about how you bring some of that across into this digital space. Because that's the real beauty is to keep that analog feel within the digital framework. Yeah. And that's the hopeful goal of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah? I'm hoping you can achieve that. So, Laura, do you feel confident that you could do an animation for next week or by the sometime?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so we can have a good look at it and share. And once I add you to Slack today, you can DM me, ask me questions
Thank you.
any time of the day. I'm usually pretty responsive. People message me quite late, but up to 10 o'clock, I reckon you'll get a response. So and it's Australia. Where are you, Deborah? You're
French Polynesia.
there. You
It's
go.
South Hemisphere. Yeah.
So, what time is it there?
It's 2 in the morning.
Right.
Wow.
That's dedication.
Yes.
So you can go to bed now.
Yes, I can.
Hopefully you can have a little come down. So send me over some this week. We can have a little look. And what would be really nice if you could base it on some of the shows that have been happening now as well. We had the beautiful Dior show with the tartans, related to something that's very current, what's happening today. So the Dior shows happened. We saw Hermes. We're seeing all these great shows happening. Document them, go online, look at some of the fashion pieces, some of the figures, even if they're I wanted to show you a detail so it isn't always about the full figure. It's nice to think about maybe parts of it. It could be a hand, a hat, a head. Don't get too stuck on portraits. Be quite playful. Yeah. So if you could send me something, if you wanted to send me one by the middle of this week, like Thursday, that would be a good start. And then I can get back to you and have a look, and then we can keep the dialogue open. Is that good for you?
Yeah.
All right, is that good for you as
Absolutely.
well?
Yeah, that's great. Can you just talk about the rest of the things on the timetable, like the sort of FDA across Alex Williamson. I wasn't sure what they were or how to get them.
So are the links not working when you click on the link?
No.
Okay, so I'll resend it and open up the links for you. But
Okay.
on them links, you
Yeah.
can click on them and there'll be a whole like descriptor of
All right. Okay.
how to watch the videos and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll just share you the original file. So, and if you, like you said, if you couldn't get access, just send me a message on Slack, and then
Okay.
I can double check why you didn't get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So all good. Any problems? Again, you can message me, and you can go to sleep, Deborah, now. So
Thank you.
so early in the morning, and hopefully that should be good. So yes, again, Laura, any issues, just message me on Slack, and
Okay.
we can go through stuff today and get testing, get experimenting. It
Yeah.
would be also good if you would like to today as also send me some examples of your work so I
Yeah.
can see them. And Deborah, any new pieces. Also, Laura, we have little projects that come up. So we're doing, I'm going to release another one or two in the next week or so. We've just finished one with a company in Hong Kong. There's little projects and it's worth getting involved. It's a good way to test, get your portfolio, get experimenting,
Yeah.
and get feedback from us. We did a project with Masoni. There's little projects coming up. So I've
And
got
where do you put those? Where do
on
I see them?
Slack. Everything's on Slack.
Okay. And so next week on the thing, it says online pre-recorded class.
Yeah, because I think there's a time discrepancy for most people. So I'm
Okay.
going to try and do some pre-recorded and some live with me. But we can meet up. There's not a problem.
Okay.
You can just message me and we can get on here and speak, or on
Right.
Zoom or something. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
That
All
was
right. So
really
have a
good.
good
Thank
day. Enjoy the sun. Whatever's come. I think it's coming here. So
It looks as if it's snowing here.
the clouds are coming. Where are you based, Laura?
In the French Alps.
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Everyone's everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm in North London, so it's very different. And it's hot. It's hot today, so we're going to enjoy it. So good.
Nice.
So message me and let's keep the conversation going. And there's a few
Yeah.
other people that will hopefully come next time as well. All right.
Great. Thank you
Great.
so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.